What is going on, guys? We're back at it again with more NFL review. Week 7 of the NFL season. I'm going to go ahead and start off with a recap of last week. Baltimore beating the Philadelphia Eagles 30-28. It was a blowout. Philadelphia coming back. Carson Wentz showing he could do more with less. Chicago beat Carolina 23-16. Indianapolis came back to beat the Bengals 31-27. Detroit smashed Jacksonville 34-16. Atlanta killed Minnesota 40-23. The Giants in a close game against the football team 20-19. Pittsburgh killing Cleveland 38-7. Tennessee beating Houston in overtime 42-36. Denver beating New England 18-12. Miami shutting out the Jets 24-0. Tampa Bay beating out Aaron Rodgers 38-10. San Francisco beating the Rams 24-16. Kansas City beating the Bills 26-17. And Arizona killing Dallas 38-10. It was a good week of football. If you guys use some of my picks, let me know how that went. I think overall, I haven't gone below 50% at all season. So I think I'm in the 60-70 range. It's pretty good, I think. But yeah, big news with the trade deadline coming up. My Ravens went ahead, signed Dez Bryant, big body wide receiver, to our practice squad. If he passes his physicals. We also traded for Yannick Ngakoue, the old superstar from the Jags that left this offseason to the Vikings. He is now joined back up with Calais Campbell in Baltimore. So that just gave us a little boost. I'm liking the moves. Let's go ahead and start off with our fantasy stardom sims. Starting off with quarterback. Matt Stafford versus Atlanta. As you know, Atlanta has been getting so many yards put up, so I look for Matt Stafford to put up yards. Justin Herbert versus the Jaguars. Joe Burrow versus the Browns. Teddy Bridgewater versus New Orleans. And Derek Carr versus Tampa Bay. With all these buys, I know last week there was like 4 teams on a buy, messed up bad. This week there's going to be a lot of running backs and wide receivers that are on buys, like the main ones, so yeah, it's a really weird fantasy football season, but those are quarterbacks I would look to start or replace with Dak. Last week I replaced Dak with Minshew, and he did okay for me. Quarterbacks I'd sit Jared Goff versus the Bears, Big Ben versus the Titans, Tannehill versus the Steelers, Drew Lock versus Kansas City, and I would sit Baker Mayfield versus the Bengals. Baker Mayfield actually got benched last week. Quote unquote, we don't want him to get hit out there. Man, all right. Baker is running a thin line, and I don't know if the Browns are going to keep the man. Maybe they're going to start quarterback shopping. We're going to go ahead and start with the running backs. Ronald Jones is a start versus Las Vegas with Leonard Fournette getting traded. I mean, I don't know. It hurt, and then Ronald Jones is not trying to let go of that spot. I would start Todd Gurley versus the Lions. DeAndre Swift, like I said, broke out. Look for him to break out again versus Atlanta. Kareem Hunt versus the Bengals. Sleeper start, Boston Scott versus the Giants with Miles Sanders out. And it's hard to say Justin Jackson or the other Chargers running back versus the Jags. Running backs I'd sit Joe Mixon versus the Browns. He did not do well against them at the beginning of the year. Damian Harris versus San Francisco. Adrian Peterson versus Atlanta. Jerick McKinnon, I would sit versus the Pats. And any of the Arizona running backs versus Seattle, whether it's Chase Edmonds or Kenyon Drake. Next up, we got our wide receivers. Like I said, some of these leagues you're gonna have to go deep and try to find some talent because these buys are really messing people up. Let's say Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins versus Cleveland. I would start Chase Claypool, starting to make himself a normal starter. I would start him versus the Titans. Terry McLaurin struggling with the trash Washington, but I look for him to shine against the Cowboys. Christian Kirk versus the Seahawks, because DeAndre Hopkins is about to get doubled. And I'm going to say DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson versus the Saints. Saints might actually struggle if they don't have Michael Thomas. We've seen that with them. Michael Thomasless was pretty bad. Wide receivers, I'd sit Julian Edelman versus the 49ers. Deebo Samuel versus the Pats. Henry Ruggs versus the Bucks. Michael Gallup versus Washington. And Tyler Lockett versus Arizona. Let's move on to the tight ends. TJ Hawkinson is one of like the best, worst tight ends ever for fantasy. I would start him, honestly, versus Atlanta. Start Henry. Start Austin Hooper. Start Jimmy Graham. And start Logan Thomas versus the Cowboys. Sits for tight end. Tyler Higbee is very disappointing. I'd sit Tyler Higbee versus the Bears. Strong defense. Sit Jared Cook versus the Panthers, but I got to start him because he's my only tight end. I'm not about to go searching for a tight end right now. Greg Olsen versus Arizona. Jonnu Smith, I know. Sit him versus the Steelers. And Eric Ebron, sit him versus the Titans. Kickers and defenses. Let's start with kickers. I would start Young Ho Koo versus Detroit. I would start Matt Prater versus Atlanta. Vice versa. Start Randy Bullock versus the Browns. Start Michael Bagley versus the Jags. And start Mason Crosby versus the Texans. I think Justin Tucker's on a bye, so I was like, you know what, I might not play without a kicker, but you know what, I honestly have 2 kickers on my team right now, so I went and got a kicker, because I need those points. You never know. Defenses I would start. Buffalo Bills versus the Jets. Buffalo's been struggling lately, but it's the Chiefs, so everybody struggles. Chargers versus the Jags. Kansas City versus Denver. Tampa Bay versus Las Vegas. And Patriots versus 49ers. Those are the defenses I would start this week. Yeah. Now that we're done with fantasy, before we get to jump into the next one, if you guys do have any questions, need suggestions, go ahead and hit me up on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, on YouTube, on this video down below. Wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening, go ahead and ask me questions, and I'll definitely try to give you my best advice, my best answers. All right, my weekly picks for week 7. Let's go ahead, and I'm going to say Eagles over the Giants, Saints over the Panthers, and that's real dependent on if Michael Thomas is playing, Bills over the Jets, Browns over the Bengals. I don't know if I should say it, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to say Cowboys over Washington. Damn it, Cowboys, if you guys lose again, I'm going to get pissed. Packers over the Texans. Lions over the Falcons. Titans over the Steelers. Seahawks over Arizona. Chiefs over the Broncos. Chargers over the Jags. 49ers over the Pats. Bucks over Las Vegas. And Chicago over the Rams. So if you guys enjoyed this video, go ahead and give me a like. Give me a subscribe on YouTube. Give me a like on Instagram. Follow me on TikTok. Follow me on Facebook. Wherever you're listening. Like I said, I'm on multiple platforms now. Just trying to have fun, talk about sports, and give you guys some information on fantasy so you guys can win your leagues, win some money, and win some bets if you guys are parlaying. Let me get some of that. If you guys want my Cash App, I can give that to you. All right, guys. I hope you guys have a blessed day. Blessed weekend. Have a great Sunday, Monday, Thursday night football, and stay blessed.